My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole $200, $0 that was supposed to be a family inheritance, and now she's claiming our house worth $1.2 million is hers in a bitter legal battle. I never saw the betrayal coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating on him, let alone discover she'd been stealing from us too. I mean, I always believed I knew Amanda pretty well. She was sharp, bossy, a little bitchy sometimes, but I thought that was just her personality. We'd been married for 8 years, had a nice house, 2 kids, a good life. Or so I thought. The first signs of trouble started showing up about 6 months ago. Amanda started working late more often, claiming she had to meet with her boss, Ryan. She'd brush it off when I asked, saying he was just a business connection, but I could tell she was hiding something. She'd come home looking tired, a little tense, and her phone suddenly became her most guarded possession. She'd hide it whenever I walked into the room, even during dinner. I started noticing little things. Missed calls, texts she'd delete right away, quick trips to the bathroom when her phone buzzed. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just stressed at work. But then I found the receipts. I was going through our joint bank statement trying to get a handle on the bills and I saw it, an $80, $0 transfer to an account I didn't recognize. I remember my stomach dropping. I looked closer. It was labeled investment. But I knew Amanda had no idea about investments. She always left that to me. I started digging deeper. That's when I noticed her credit card statements. Small charges at high-end hotels and restaurants. Nothing huge on its own, but enough to make me suspicious. I began watching her more closely, waiting for something to slip. And then it happened. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen table and I saw a message pop up. It was from Ryan, just a simple, "Can't wait to see you tonight," with a winky emoji. My heart sank. I read the message twice, then 3 times. It was undeniable. She'd been lying about her meetings, about her late nights. She was sleeping with her boss. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All those years I thought we had a stable life, a partnership. Turns out she was cheating on me with the guy she used to brag about being her mentor. I was furious, but mostly hurt. How could she do this? How could she betray me and our family like that? I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I needed to gather more evidence. I couldn't just accuse her based on a few texts. I started secretly following her, checking her bank accounts, her emails, everything I could access. One morning I found out she'd taken a huge sum, $200 of our inheritance money. It was supposed to be for our kids' college fund, for our future. Instead, she'd used it to fund her affair, her secret life. I couldn't believe it. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about betrayal on a scale I'd never imagined. I felt like I was living in a nightmare and I was just starting to realize how deep the rabbit hole went. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started planning my next move carefully, coldly. I had no intention of just walking away. She thought she could lie her way out of everything, but I was going to make her regret it. I was going to fight for what was mine, for the family she was trying to destroy. The worst part, I still loved her, even after everything. But love doesn't mean blind trust. I was about to show her that. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became how deep her lies went. Amanda was never the innocent wife I thought I married. She was manipulative, ruthless even when it came to getting what she wanted. She'd spin stories about her stress, her boss, how he was just a mentor helping her climb the corporate ladder. But I saw through it. I saw the way she looked at Ryan, like he was her escape, her ticket out of a life she claimed to hate. After discovering the money theft, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her drain us dry or keep pretending everything was fine. I started by hearing a private investigator. I needed proof, undeniable proof of her affair, her theft, her lies. It took a few weeks, but the pie came back with more than I expected. They followed Amanda to a luxury hotel downtown. She was with Ryan, no doubt about it. They were in the same room for hours. I got pictures, recordings. It was sickening, but I needed to see her caught in the act so I could confront her with everything. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her accounts. I discovered she'd opened a secret offshore account, funneling money there. I found out she'd been planning to leave me, maybe even take the house. Our house worth over $1 million, claiming it was hers now because she deserved it after all the years she'd suffered with me. She told everyone I was controlling, jealous, insecure, made herself look like the victim while she was out screwing her boss and stealing our future. That's when I realized I needed to confront her directly. I couldn't keep playing this game in the shadows. One night, I came home early from work. She was supposed to be working late, but I knew better. I caught her in our bedroom packing a bag. She looked surprised, trying to play innocent, but her eyes told a different story. I stood there furious, knowing I had everything I needed. I called her out on everything: the affair, the theft, the offshore accounts. She spun some bullshit about how she was just stressed, how Ryan was just a friend, how she never meant to hurt me. She looked me right in the face and lied, claiming she was trying to fix things, that she loved me and the kids, that it was just a mistake. I felt like I'd been punched again. That's when the rage took over. How could she be so callous, so selfish? I told her she wasn't leaving with a damn thing until I got clear answers. I told her I'd already started the process of legal action, of reclaiming what was ours. I wasn't going to let her walk away with the house, the money, or our reputation. I wanted her out of my life, and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. She threw a tantrum, crying, screaming, claiming I was overreacting, that I was jealous and controlling. But I didn't care. I knew she'd been lying for months, probably years, and I was done being her fool. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, humiliated. I hated myself for trusting her so blindly. I kept replaying all the little moments, her sneaking around, the secret phone calls, the way she'd look at Ryan with that sickening fondness. I'd always believed in loyalty, in honesty. Turns out I was just naive. Amanda had turned into someone I didn't recognize. She was a thief, a liar, a seductress, and worst of all, she'd used my love against me. But I was determined not to be a victim anymore. I started making plans. I contacted a lawyer, prepared for the legal battle over the house and the inheritance. I was going to fight her for every dollar, every piece of property she thought she could steal from us. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. She had money, influence, and her lies had clouded the truth for a long time. But I also knew I had the truth on my side. And I was ready to use it. The first step was cutting her out of my life completely. I told her she had until the end of the week to leave the house. She threw another fit, called me controlling and jealous, but I wasn't backing down. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You betrayed me, you betrayed our family, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. This is over." I felt a strange sense of relief, like I was finally taking control of my life again. But deep down, I knew the worst was yet to come. The legal fight, the fallout with the kids. I wasn't naive anymore. I was ready to face whatever came next, because I knew now that trust was broken beyond repair. And Amanda, she was going to pay for what she did. The week that followed was a whirlwind. I moved out of the house to stay with a friend, not because I wanted to, but because I knew Amanda wouldn't leave quietly. She was furious, screaming, crying, trying to guilt me into backing down. She kept insisting she was innocent, that Ryan was just a friend, that I was overreacting, that she loved me and the kids, but I'd heard enough. I had the evidence, I had the legal advice, and I had no intention of letting her spin her lies any longer. I met with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Lisa, who immediately understood the situation. We drafted papers to freeze her assets, to prevent her from siphoning more money offshore, and to claim the house. I told her I wanted full custody of the kids. My priority was their stability, and I knew Amanda's lies and reckless behavior weren't good for them. Lisa warned me this would turn ugly fast, especially since Amanda had a lot of influence and was already painting herself as the victim. I didn't care. I was done playing nice. Meanwhile, I kept digging into Amanda's financial records. The offshore account she'd opened was just the tip of the iceberg. I found out she'd been funneling money into multiple accounts, some in her name, some in Ryan's. It was clear she'd planned this for months, maybe even years. She'd been secretly building a nest egg, probably thinking she'd run away with everything. The $200, $0 stolen from our inheritance was just a part of it. I also discovered she'd been secretly buying property in her own name, trying to set up a new life for herself once she left. One day, I caught her red-handed trying to access our joint account online. She was panicked, trying to cover her tracks, but I already had the login info. I saw her face drain of color when I told her I knew everything. She started crying, claiming she'd just made a mistake, that she loved me and the kids, that she didn't mean to hurt us. She begged for another chance, but I'd heard enough. I told her she had no right to be in our house, no right to our money, no right to our future. I was done with her lies. The legal battle started heating up quickly. Amanda hired her own lawyer, of course, a slick guy named Derek who tried to spin her stories. She claimed she was entitled to half the house because she'd contributed to its value, despite the fact that I had paid for it all and the house was in my name. She argued she was entitled to the inheritance, that it was a gift from her family and that she deserved a share. I knew she was bluffing, but it was clear she was trying to manipulate the system. The truth was, I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting for my dignity, for the future of my kids, and for the fact that I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible. I couldn't believe she'd stooped so low, cheating, stealing, lying to everyone, even to her own family. It felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. Every day I woke up wondering how I'd been so blind, how I'd missed the signs. But now I was all in. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I was prepared to go to war if I had to get back what she'd stolen and to protect what was left of my life. Throughout all this, I kept thinking about how she'd lied to the kids, told them she was working late or going to meetings when she was really with Ryan. I imagined their little faces, confused, not understanding what was happening. It broke my heart. I wanted to shield them from the mess, but I knew they'd see the truth eventually. They deserved to know the kind of person Amanda really was, and I promised myself I'd be honest with them, without tearing her down completely, but enough to show them what real betrayal looks like. It was a strange feeling both angry and numb at the same time. I'd been married to her for nearly a decade, and now I was fighting to take back my life from someone I thought I knew. Every day was a new battle, legal, emotional, financial. I'd never imagined I'd be here in the middle of a war over a house, a fortune, and a woman I once loved. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. I would make sure she paid for what she did, even if it meant losing everything else along the way. Because at the end of the day, trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. And she had shattered mine. The courtroom drama was something out of a nightmare. Amanda's lawyers, slick and confident, tried every trick in the book. They claimed she had a right to half the house because she'd contributed emotionally and supported me through tough times. They argued she deserved a fair share of the inheritance, even though I had the receipts, the bank statements, the proof of the $200, $0 she stole. But the judge wasn't easy to sway. I sat there, feeling like I was fighting not just for my property but for my sanity. Amanda on the stand was her usual bitchy self, defensive, manipulative, lying through her teeth. She claimed she had no idea about the offshore accounts or the money she'd taken. She insisted she was just trying to save the marriage, that Ryan was just a colleague, and that she never intended to hurt me or the kids. She looked me in the eyes and said she loved me, that she was trying to fix things. I couldn't believe her audacity. The whole time she was scheming behind my back, planning her escape and trying to make herself look innocent. I testified next. I laid out everything: the evidence, the financial records, the recordings of her affair with Ryan. I told the court about the stolen inheritance, how she'd been secretly funneling money away, how she was trying to leave me with nothing. I saw her smirk when I described her lies, her attempts to manipulate the system. It made me sick. I felt a mix of rage and sadness, rage at her betrayal, sadness that I'd once believed in her, in us. The judge listened carefully. After hours of arguments, the verdict came down in my favor. The house remained in my name, and I was awarded full custody of the kids. The court ordered Amanda to return the stolen $200, $0 plus interest, and to pay a hefty sum in damages for the financial fraud. She tried to appeal, of course, claiming I was trying to ruin her, but the evidence was overwhelming. The truth was out. That day, I felt a strange sense of relief, but also emptiness. I had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Amanda's face twisted in anger and frustration as she was told she'd lose everything: her house, her money, her reputation. She screamed, called me a vindictive bastard, and threatened to fight me in every way possible. I knew she'd try to come back, to manipulate her way out of everything, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a new resolve to protect my kids and rebuild my life. The aftermath was a blur. I moved into a smaller place, trying to start fresh. The kids were confused, but I made sure to be honest with them, telling them their mother made terrible choices, but that I loved them and would always be there. I cut ties with Amanda completely. She was still trying to reach out, to guilt me into giving her another chance, but I had no interest. She'd burned that bridge, and I was done playing her game. But the hardest part was facing the financial mess she'd left behind. The offshore accounts, the property in her name, the debts she'd accumulated trying to hide her tracks. I had to work twice as hard to get everything back in order. I also had to deal with the emotional scars, feeling betrayed, humiliated, and angry. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd used that trust to destroy us. Looking back now, I realize how much I learned about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting myself. I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was blinded by love. Now I know better, no matter how much you love someone, you have to keep your guard up. Because some betrayals cut so deep they change you forever. I still have scars, but I'm rebuilding. And I'll never let anyone take me for a fool again. It's a hard lesson, but maybe it's one everyone needs to hear. Be careful who you trust. Because when someone you love turns out to be a liar and a thief, the damage goes way beyond just money. It's your heart, your future, and your peace of mind that gets shattered. And sometimes the only way to heal is to fight back and win. The months that followed were a brutal kind of recovery. I was left with the house, the kids, and a mountain of debt Amanda had accumulated trying to cover her tracks. I had to rebuild everything from scratch, emotionally, financially, legally. Honestly, I never thought I'd be one of those guys who'd have to start over at nearly 40, but here I was. Every day was a reminder of her betrayal, every bill, every legal document a scar that wouldn't quite heal. Still, I forced myself to keep going, to put one foot in front of the other for the kids' sake. It wasn't just the financial fallout that hit hard. It was the betrayal on a personal level. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her lies. I replayed every argument, every moment I thought was normal, and wondered how I could have been so stupid. The worst part was knowing she was still out there, probably spinning her lies, trying to manipulate her way back into some semblance of normal life. I knew she hadn't given up. She was still scheming, still trying to claw her way out of the mess she created. One thing I did do was cut all contact. I blocked her on everything: phone, email, social media. I told the kids the truth in a way that was honest but didn't tear her down completely. I wanted them to see her for what she was, but also to understand that their dad was still here, still fighting for their future. It was hard explaining to them why Mommy wasn't around anymore, why she'd lied and stolen from us. But I promised I'd do everything I could to give them stability, to shield them from the chaos she'd caused. Meanwhile, I worked with my lawyer to settle the remaining disputes. We went after the offshore accounts, the property she'd bought in her name, and the money she'd hidden away. It was a long, exhausting process. Amanda kept trying to stall, to manipulate the courts, to make herself look like the victim. But I had the evidence, and I had the law on my side. Every day I felt a little stronger, a little more determined. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money anymore. I was fighting to reclaim my dignity. The biggest challenge was dealing with the emotional scars. I trusted her for so long, believed in the life we built. Now I felt like I'd been living a lie, like the woman I loved was just a mask she wore to hide her true self. I was angry, yes, but also sad. Sad for the years lost, for the trust broken, for the family shattered. I had moments of despair, but I refused to let her win completely. I needed to be strong for the kids, for myself. I also started to see some good in the wreckage. I realized I'd been too focused on her, on the relationship, and not enough on myself. I needed to rebuild my confidence, find my purpose again. I threw myself into work, into my hobbies, and most importantly, into being a better father. The kids needed stability, and I owed it to them to be their rock. I also started going to therapy, something I'd never considered before, because I knew I had to process all this anger and betrayal. It's not easy admitting you're hurting, but it's necessary. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this ordeal. I learned that love isn't enough if it's not mutual and honest. I learned that some people are just too selfish to change. And I learned that the only way to truly move on is to face the pain head-on, no matter how hard it is. I still get angry sometimes, still wonder how she could do this, but I also know I'm stronger now. I'm rebuilding my life, piece by piece, and I refuse to let her define my future. I want anyone reading this to understand that betrayal cuts deep, but it's not the end. You can come out of it stronger if you're willing to fight for yourself, for your kids, and for your dignity. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can truly save you from betrayal is yourself. And I've learned that the hard way. But I also know it's possible to heal, to rebuild, and to find happiness again, even if it takes time. Trust is fragile, but resilience is stronger. Never forget that. Now, looking back, I realize how much this whole nightmare has changed me. Amanda's betrayal was a blow I never saw coming, and it forced me to confront things I'd never thought I'd have to face: trust, love, betrayal, and the limits of my own strength. I learned that sometimes, the people you love the most can turn out to be the ones who hurt you the deepest. It's a brutal lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. The house is still in my name, and I've managed to get most of the stolen money back through legal channels. I've rebuilt my financial stability, but more importantly, I've rebuilt my sense of self. I no longer feel like the naive fool I was, trusting blindly, believing in fairy tales. Now I see things more clearly. I know that love, real love, has to be based on honesty and respect. Without that, everything else crumbles. The kids are doing better than I expected. They're resilient, just like their father. I make sure they know they are loved unconditionally, no matter what Amanda did. I tell them stories about trust, about how sometimes people make terrible choices, but that doesn't define who they are. It's their actions that do. I want them to grow up understanding that betrayal is painful, but that they can survive it, stronger, wiser, more cautious. As for Amanda, I hear she's still trying to claw her way back into some semblance of her old life, but I've learned not to care about her anymore. There's no point in looking back at someone who lied and stole from you. I've let go of the anger that used to consume me. I've replaced it with a quiet resolve to move forward without her. I've come to accept that some people just aren't worth the pain they cause. This experience has taught me the importance of guarding your heart and your assets, of never taking trust for granted. It's also shown me that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back, legally, emotionally, and mentally. I've learned that resilience isn't just bouncing back. It's about moving forward with a clearer mind and a stronger spirit. Finally, I want anyone reading this who might be going through something similar to know this. Betrayal hurts, and it's okay to feel broken for a while. But don't let it define you. Use it as fuel to rebuild, to learn, and to grow. Trust is precious, but it's fragile. Protect it, but don't be afraid to walk away if it's been shattered beyond repair. Because in the end, your happiness and integrity are what matter most. And if I've learned anything from all this, it's that even after the darkest storms, there's always a chance to find the light again.